Highly successful individuals are always focused on what's next, but they often don't take time to reflect on their journey and how far they've come. I'm Craig Heatherly, host of the Path Less Travel podcast, where we dive into the journeys of extraordinary leaders. Their success rarely follows a straight path, and that's what makes their story so remarkable. Now let's dive into this week's episode after a brief message from our sponsors. Looking for top talent in tech or professional fields? Avero Talent connects businesses with exceptional candidates, specializing in tailored recruiting solutions that match the right skills to your team's needs. Whether you're building a team or searching for a tough-to-fill position, Avero Talent delivers the expertise you need to hire smarter, faster, and with confidence. Let Avero Talent help you find your next star employee.
At Cressy Leadership, we don't just train leaders, we transform business and change lives. Employees learn to communicate around difficult challenges. Leaders build skills that create a thriving culture. Companies become healthier and more successful. We're Erin Cressy, Mickey Hay, and Anna McEachran, your expert partners, trainers, and coaches. Join the organizations already thriving with Cressy Leadership.
Welcome to the Path Less Travel podcast. This week, we feature the president and CEO of EVS, Emergency Vehicle Seating, Tom Downey. Tom, thanks for joining the show.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Good morning. Every episode is unique, whether it be because of the company or the leader that I get to interview, and I get to do these things regularly. But in prepping for this, I don't know if you knew this, but you can't believe everything you read on the internet. Some wise man told me that many, many years ago, but I read something on the internet that I need you to clarify for us. Is it true or accurate that over 90% of ambulances in North America have your product in it?
That's correct.
Really?
Yes.
Well, tell us about EVS.
EVS was founded in 1993 by a gentleman named Mike Harmon, local entrepreneur. He had worked in seating companies and vinyl companies in his career, and just had an idea to make an ambulance seat that would also turn into a child carrier. So think about a seat that you and I would sit on, but then you get out of it and you pull down a little flap and it becomes a child seat. In the back of an ambulance, there's not a lot of space. So this was a problem, because if you're at a scene of an accident and you want to get someone to the hospital soon, but there's a toddler in the car, how are you going to move that toddler safely? So you had everything going on. You had moms holding on to toddlers in their arms.
Right.
And it was just completely unsafe. So Mike had this idea to build a child seat within an ambulance seat, and he was passionate about it and was able to create a product, showed it to some folks, and then it got adopted. And then slowly but surely it became the standard, and now is the gold standard for child passenger safety in the back of an ambulance.
Wow.
As well as keeping the medic and all the whole crew in the back of an ambulance safe. It's evolved a lot further than just that one integrated child seat, but it all started with Mike's vision to try to fill a need in an industry.
A big thank you to Senior One Care for sponsoring today's episode. Founded in 2006 by Carl and Kyle Bossing, this family-owned business has provided compassionate in-home care for nearly 2 decades. If my family needed a caregiver, I'd call Kyle. With 6 Indiana locations, they give you the peace of mind while your loved ones receive the care they deserve. Learn more at senioronecare.com. Well, let's talk about that evolution. So from there to where you're at today, what's that evolution look like?
Yeah, so when essentially back in the 90s, there weren't very many, I would call, standards or regulations on the safety requirements for seating in the back of an ambulance. just like in our cars, there used to not be laws that you had to wear seatbelts, and then all of a sudden you have to. And then you didn't have to wear seatbelts in the back of the seat, but then now you do. So ambulance seating, the back of an ambulance, was very much the same thing, except way, way, way behind. No regulation. What Mike did is sort of create the regulation by creating the product that was safe, and then testing and standards followed.
Okay.
So we just took that same approach and started adding more seats, side-facing seats, swivel seats, seats that are on a tracking system that can slide up and down the cot to work on a patient at the head or work on a patient at the feet. So we just kept coming up with the next iteration to really solve all types of needs in the back of an ambulance as it pertains to seating. And with the purpose of keeping the paramedic in the seat. So you have to have a lot of mobility. You've got to be able to let them lean forward, stand up, but all the while keeping strapped in, because you never know when that accident is going to happen. Right. If an accident happens in the back of an ambulance and the medics are not strapped in, it's very, very high percentage of the time it's either fatal or some serious head injury, because there's so many perils in the back of an ambulance. So the trick is try to create a safety seat for every place a paramedic might need to be in the back of an ambulance. And that's what EVS has done over the last 25, 30 years, is create new seating almost every year to solve different problems in the back of an ambulance. So it keeps our company ahead of the competition. Right. So it's not so hard to be 90% market share when you really are the only company that actually offers enough seating to solve every type of seating position in the back of a truck and every model of truck, whether it be a transit vehicle or whether it be one of those giant ambulances that have huge boxes on the back of them. We've been able to create seating for virtually every need, and there's no other company even close to what EVS does.
Well, upon arrival here at this beautiful facility that you guys have, I went to the wrong door. And as I was peeking through the window, I saw a sign that said, "Act like an owner today."
That's right.
And so I want to get into what is unique about EVS.
Yeah, and you hit it right there. When I came to EVS, I was actually trying to buy EVS. I had ended a 32-year career at a trucking company, and it was a sad ending for what was a family business that turned into a private equity held business that ultimately was purchased by a large publicly traded trucking company. So I didn't do anything for about a year and a half. So I wanted to acquire EVS. I was connected to Mike Harmon by a friend, and we started talking, and we actually made a deal. But towards the end of the deal, Mike didn't want to do the deal. He wanted me to consider helping him turn the company into an ESOP, a 100% employee-owned company. And I really didn't know much about ESOPs at the time. I didn't ever investigate it previously. But he and I traveled down to see some ESOP experts, and I started learning about it. And I thought to myself, this could really work. So we went from being privately held by Mike Harmon only to 100% employee-owned, which is also very unique. A lot of companies offer their shares into retirement plans, 401k plans, but they're partial ESOPs. They're partial employee ownership. Mike wanted to go all in. So we went all in, became 100% employee-owned, and it's something that most people don't understand on what that really is, and including me, and including most of our employees. But we learned how to communicate it to our people. We went to classes, we went to seminars, and we finally figured out how to get our folks to understand that they are in fact owners, that this is not some smoke and mirrors, this is not some pie in sky promise. And once we got that done, then the pendulum really started swinging. I mean, this company has more than quadrupled in size since we became an ESOP. More than quadrupled.
Wow.
And everything has been stronger. Our morale, our productivity, our sales growth, everything about what we do is been off the charts. And I believe it's because we have that ownership culture here. And that's why you see that sign, act like an owner today. It plays on to Notre Dame, play like a champion today. Yeah. We want our employees to act like an owner today. And when they do, it shows up, and it shows up in a big way. So Mike had the right vision again. He knew that if he could get this company to be employee owned, that it was going to go to even greater lengths and greater distances than we ever thought possible. And that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, I've read a couple of news articles that just the growth that you guys have experienced in the last 10 years, it's fourfold, I believe.
Yes.
And that matches exactly what you were just talking about right there. Well, I want to start to shift the focus a little bit towards just your leadership journey. Mm-hmm. And what I love about this podcast is I get to meet some very humble individuals, mm-hmm. and I can see that you're one of those as well. So you don't like talking about yourself, but I'm gonna put the spotlight on you. The title of the podcast is The Path Less Traveled. And when you hear that and you think about your leadership journey, kind of what comes to mind?
Yeah, it's a good question. I have been thinking about that. I don't know why, but for some reason, at a very young age, I became a capitalist. And I don't know if that's a bad word or not, okay? But I understood and enjoyed the fact that you could work hard and get paid, and then you could work harder and get paid more. And it was wonderful.
Nice little correlation there.
Yeah, so I'm 13, 14 years old, and I was the kid that mowed lawns in the neighborhood. I was the person that washed cars. And I would do as many as I could because I got paid for every car I washed. And so I just loved it. It's like I can get paid for doing something that I don't mind doing, and I can do it well. And if I do a lot of them, I do better. So at a very young age, I got that concept, and probably stemmed from my parents instilling a great work ethic and high integrity, and that was certainly core to who I am, but I just thrived on it. So everything I did in a very young age was something to do with trying to make a buck, doing something. And I actually started my own business at 15 years old called Tom's Light Maintenance. And my dad had acquired a trucking company in 1982, and I didn't work at that trucking company. I worked at another company called the Home Juice Company, and I was selling juice door to door off of a refrigerated truck. Okay, a guy named Ben Jones from the Home Juice Company, he would pick me up literally after school. I would get in his truck, and we would run around and we would sell juice, and we also sold WIC, Women, Infants, and Children, government supplied food to the needy. Mm-hmm. We would take vouchers, and I would be the person that ran it up to the door. Here's your cheese, your milk, your eggs, your baby formula, and I got paid 7% of sales every day, and I got paid right away. So he'd pick me up from school. We would run around for 4 or 5 hours. I would sell juice. I would deliver food. He would tabulate up what the sales were for the day, and he'd pay me cash before I got off the truck. It was so gratifying. So the more I worked, the more I hustled, the more I got paid, and it was instant. I don't know. Maybe there was a little bit of greed at my young age, right? Because you just want to get paid. You like the money and all that. Who doesn't? What 15-year-old doesn't want money? Everybody does. So I didn't work at our family trucking company because I was doing so well doing this other stuff. But Dad wanted me to work there, so I created Tom's Light Maintenance, and I got paid for task. Wash a truck, it was worth a certain amount. Fix this is worth a certain amount. Mop the dock floor is worth a certain amount. No problem. I could work with that. And then again, the more I did, the more I was able to bill my dad for my services. So I was sort of uncapped. I could, many trucks that I wanted to wash, I could get paid. Well, that ended. Eventually, he saw my check one day and he called me in his office and he said, "Hey, this party's over. You're not going to get paid this anymore. If you want to come work for us, it's $4 an hour." And I'm like, "What? $4 an hour? No way, that doesn't work for me." But it was the first time in my life I experienced my earning potential be capped, because now you're only going to make $4 an hour. And yeah, the more hours you work, the more you make. But I was not able to, it was nothing like I was doing before, where the more that I was able to do, the more you were able to make. So I just learned that at a very young age. And maybe early in my career, it was a detriment because you're too focused on it.
Right.
But then later in my career, particularly here today at EVS, it's allowed us to attract some fantastic people that work really hard, and they all do very well for the positions they have. And they all have uncapped incentive plans. Every person here at EVS has a uncapped incentive plan that most of them pay weekly and others pay monthly. A few pay quarterly for some of your executive team. But everybody has incentive plans. They're all uncapped and they're all owners. So our people here are experiencing immediate financial benefits from just working hard and doing more and productivity-based incentive plans. But then at the end of the day, the company does better. So we become more profitable. We introduce more products, we get them out faster than just about anybody else.
Yeah.
And they're benefiting because they're owners. So when all the checks get cashed and the bills get paid, at the end of the day, the ownership is who benefits from that value that's being generated, and our employees are all owners. And so it's really a great model.
Yeah.
So it's similar to how I was brought up. Just you work hard and you work in an uncapped environment.
Wow.
You can work as hard as you want and get paid as much as you want. And that's what our people here are doing. And it's really helped our company. And it's certainly helped our ESOP, which is really my entire focus today.
Well, you've been a leader for a couple of decades now. You've encountered other leaders across your time. How would you describe your leadership style, or how it may be perceived, you'd want it to be perceived by others?
First and foremost would be transparency and high integrity. That's when folks talk about me when I'm not around, I would want them to say, I always know where he stands. There's no gray areas. There's no suspicious of anything. People know that they're getting the true story, the accurate story. And I would also think most people would say, I'm really helpful for their career. I want to help people succeed. And I enjoy that more than anything today. As I said, when you're young in your career, it was, hey, how can I put more money in my pocket as a 15-year-old and 18-year-old? I want to buy a new car. But as I'm older now, I really enjoy seeing other people succeed more than anything. And this has been going on for at least 15 years. It's just personally gratifying. And the ESOP plays right into that because we're changing people's lives. When we have lifelong sewers or lifelong assembly workers that are now have life-changing proceeds in their ESOP account and are considering early retirement, and there's nothing more gratifying to me than to feel like I was a part of helping that happen. Okay, creating the model, helping Mike Harmon convert this company into an ESOP, and continuing the success that he got started for everybody, and then really taking it to the next level. It's really what I want to see on my tombstone someday, is that we helped everybody. again, I came ultimately from a family-owned business. My mom and dad had owned a trucking company, and I worked there 32 years, eventually did become president and CEO. 4 presidents after my dad had retired. My dad sold the company to private equity, and then there were 4 different president and CEOs in there, and then I finally was asked to do the job. But when you're owned by a family and there's a value being doled out for the value of the business, most of the value is going to go to the family, right? That's the way it would be. If you owned a business, it's kind of how it would be. You would reap most of the benefits of the success of the business. In the private equity world, it's mostly the private equity group people. They'll reap most of the value that's being generated. In an ESOP, it's the employees. So it's not an individual, it's not a private equity group. It goes right back to the employees. And that has been the most satisfying part of this part of my career, is seeing the value that we're creating, but knowing it's going right back into the retirement accounts of our employees that are actually creating that value. So it's absolutely a game changer. In fact, I look at myself today as a benefit plan manager. We manufacture ambulance seats, but we're a benefit plan manager. So we are selling our employees on the idea that this ESOP is your long-term retirement. And you have to look at it that way. So decisions you make, risks you decide to take, risks you don't take, just every decision we make, we put our benefit manager hat on. Is this in the best interest of our participants? Is this in the best interest of our retirees? So it's completely changed your focus on business by always needing to put your benefit manager hat on first. And that was a hard transition to make, coming from just being this entrepreneur your whole life. And now you're a benefit plan manager. I have to preserve the promise of retirement. And so we have people looking at retiring early, and we got to make sure that happens. We got to make sure we protect that for them forever.
You mentioned that this is a season of your life of leadership that you're really leaning into helping others.
Yep. Absolutely.
And you're giving advice. You're probably passing down some wisdom that you've learned over years. What's some advice that you wish that you would have learned maybe as a 15-year-old that's out there hustling?
Yeah. Clearly, I think I let the capitalism, making money, dominate my thinking too much as a young man. Okay.
Yeah.
Where, let's face it, it's not all about the money, right? We know that now in our older years, okay? But you couldn't have told me that at 14, 15 years old. And even when I first got my first supervisory jobs in the trucking company and management jobs, I was always focused on profits first. And it's not really the right focus. My dad had a saying that I still say today. And he said, take care of the customers, take care of the employees, and they both will take care of the company. So it was his way of just prioritizing taking care of the customer at all costs, take care of your people at all costs. And then if you do that well, together they will take care of the company. And I say that around here at least every week when we're talking to people. I started digesting some of this in the trucking company underneath my dad's leadership, and it's finally started to sink in. And I kind of moved away from this like, hey, we're here to make a profit at all costs, to we're here to take care of our customers at all costs. We're here to take care of our employees at all costs. And we'll trust that the numbers are going to work out in the end if we do that right, okay? And they did. And when you focus on your customers and you focus on your employees and you create that environment where they want to be, and customers are happy and employees are feeling engaged and being treated fair and being listened to, and you're in a high integrity environment, great things happen. And probably nobody was better at doing that than my dad. So I had the opportunity of learning under him and transitioning from that, we're only here to make money, to no, we're here to serve customers, lead people, and then making money will come later. And that's exactly, what happened. I eventually grew up in my late 20s and 30s and did a halfway decent job running that trucking company, even though it was owned by private equity, and we were very limited in some of the things we wanted to do. Certainly not as much freedom as you have when you're privately held, or the freedom we have now when we're employee owned, but we did okay through some pretty tough times.
Well, it seems like you and the company here, you guys are in a pretty sweet spot, and I'm sure it hasn't been sweet the entire time. Some challenges along the way. I mean, when you reflect upon maybe some challenges or failures, do you have a favorite time in which you were faced with a difficult situation and a lesson that you learned from it that you'd be open to sharing?
At EVS, we've enjoyed incredible success. The ambulance industry is a bit insulated from economic turmoil. Most ambulances are purchased by government-related entities, and our government spends money no matter what, right? Yeah. Good times or bad times. Yeah, in COVID, we had a month or two of slowdown, but nothing ever really impacted us financially. We actually own another company called Shadow Corporation. They're a metal fabrication company. They were a supplier for EVS. We ended up acquiring them and added them into our ESOP. That company was very tied to the RV industry, and it's been up and down, up and down. And during COVID, it was way down. So we had to make a decision. What are we going to do? Are we going to lay people off or cut benefits? And we decided to not lay anybody off during COVID, even though we had no work over at Shadow to do. We instead had our employees doing things like painting the building and redoing our landscaping. And we brought a lot of employees over to EVS to learn jobs over here.
Wow.
And this went on for months and months and months until the RV industry started to rebound. So it was challenging economically for the company because that was costly. We had a lot of employees we were keeping on board and keeping their payroll going with no revenue. But I felt really good that that's the kind of company we were. And so it was challenging. Our decision was to let our financial situation deteriorate a little bit because we needed to make sure we took care of our employees.
Wow.
And those employees are all with us still today. And it's something that, go back to, what my dad would say, take care of the customers, take care of the employees. Well, that was our chance and really our obligation to take care of our employees at that time. And we did. And today, those people are with us still. And quite frankly, it's one of the things they say often, how much they appreciated the fact that we've never laid anybody off, despite an RV industry that's been up and down the last 5 years. But yet, we keep everybody busy 100% of the time. I'm proud of that, but sometimes it does come with a little financial pain.
Yeah. Well, those are very hard times, and I'm sure hard conversations internally to be had. You're faced with hard conversations somewhat on a regular basis. It's different here within the I'm sure an employee-owned company when everybody has skin in the game. But when you look at hard conversations in your life that you've had to have, do you have a framework for how to approach them to have a better result on the back end? Any advice there?
I go back to being honest all the time, and it's not personal. You always have to try to put yourself in someone else's shoes. If you're going to talk to someone about something they're doing wrong and they need to change, or you got to find a way not to make it personal, and you got to always find a way to make it helpful. Like, we're here to help. What can I do to help? And so I don't think I've had a lot of hard conversations. I've had difficult topics to get through, but they're usually not hard because we start with understanding what they're going through and this is not going to go real well in their minds. But I got to find a way, not just sugarcoat it, not that, but I got to find a way to get at the facts of the situation, but in a we're here to help you succeed manner.
Yeah.
And we do that, I think, pretty well around here. And I think that's how our team would say I work with them on things that we need to improve, is understanding what we do well, understanding where we have to improve, and then how can I help you improve? And it's almost everybody will succeed. And another thing my dad used to say a lot, he goes, he's hardly met a person that if you lay out expectations of what needs to be done, that they're going to just deliberately not do it.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to succeed. So you have to make sure you are clear. What is success? How are we going to measure success here? What do we want done? And when do we want it done by? And how are we going to get it done? And that's got to be clear. And then you got to make sure they got the tools. Okay, so what do they need to actually be successful? Do they need an actual tool? Do they need some support from another department? Or do they need more time because they're on something else that's taking up too much time? Make sure that your employees are equipped to get the job done. And if you do that as the leader, they will succeed. They just almost never will fail. Yeah. If you're clear on what you need done and you give them the tools they need to go get it, they'll succeed. And that's been my experience for many years.
I've got one final question for you, and then I'll get your final thoughts.
Sure.
As you reflect upon, gosh, you've been in a leadership role for a long time, and you've seen some great success within the two companies you've been a part of. What are you most proud of? And this could be not just business, it could be family, but when you think about the question, what are you most proud of? What comes to mind?
Well, I've been married for 35 years. That's probably one of my top goals or top accomplishments. As everyone knows, staying married isn't easy all the time. So we've been able to stay married to my wife, Carol, for a really long time and raise a family that wants to stay around town. They want to be around their parents, and we love that. So the fact that we've been able to create that in town where our kids aren't like, how quick can I get out of here? How quick can I leave and go someplace else? They want to be here. They want to take vacations with us. They want to go camping with us. But I think this stems from Carol and I having a great relationship and being together for so long. It's just a typical traditional family. So I'm most proud that we're able to accomplish that. The business accomplishments have been great, but at the end of the day, you got to go back to your family and the fact that we have such great, close-knit kids and now grandkids. There's just nothing more gratifying in my mind.
And that's pretty special. We were talking about that before we started doing the interview. That's a goal. I know it's a goal of mine for my kids to want to hang out with me. And when you hear people speak about that and have that experience, it is unique. And kudos to you guys, because it's hard to do. It takes work. Well, what final thoughts would you want to communicate to, my goodness, about EVS, maybe to a young leader, leadership in general? Anything that you want to get across here as we wrap up?
I think EVS is a example of what a company can achieve when you share in success of the business with your employees. Whether that's as an ESOP or whether it's just in some other way, but everybody is benefiting by the success of that company. We are successful today, I think, a lot in part because we are an ESOP and we have that ownership mentality. And they know their owners. They've gotten ESOP statements now for 10 years. Mm-hmm. They've seen their values grow. But you don't necessarily have to be an ESOP to do that. You can do that. Any company can do that. Any company can create the right environment to let people thrive and then let them win and let them win financially as that company succeeds. So don't be greedy as a leader. as a business owner, share. And I think the more that you share, the more that your company is going to perform. And ultimately, the owner, you're going to get what you're going to get. But let your team win and let your team share in the successes, not just financial, but also celebrations, Christmas parties. We do Christmas parties. We give awards out. We celebrate all the time, multiple times a year, and we're giving out awards and just bragging about our people constantly. Let people succeed. Let them be in the limelight. Let them benefit financially, when that company is sharing its success with its employees. That's really what an ESOP allows us to do. But you don't have to be an ESOP to do those things.
Well, thanks for doing this. This is fun. I enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.